Welcome to the Innovation Junkies podcast. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Innovation Junkies podcast. I'm Jeff Standridge.
And this is Jeff Amrine. I'm glad to be back.
Yeah, it's great. Hey, listen, man, we've got a great guest with us today, and I'm really excited to introduce you to and for our listeners to hear from Cory as well. Cory Carlson is an entrepreneur. He's a former executive, husband, father of three, lives in Cincinnati. He's an engineer by training, also with an MBA. And Cory, great to have you with us today.
Well, Jeff, thank you very much for the opportunity, and Jeff as well, having both. And I'm just very grateful to have the opportunity to share really part of my story to help listeners to kind of recognize and realize that they do not have to stay where they're at if they're feeling stuck in any way. So I'm glad I get to share part of my story in a way to help others.
Hey, that's super, Cory. Thank you so much. So speaking of that story, why don't you just kind of fill in the blanks? I hit just a very high level of your background, but bring us up to kind of where you are now with what you do.
Yeah. So, I civil engineer by degree and did that career for a little bit, but then got into technical sales, selling civil engineering equipment or products, I should say, not equipment, bridges, storm sewer, sanitary sewer pipe. And I did that in Kansas City, had success, and got promoted and moved to Denver, Colorado, where I managed a bunch of people in states. And then I got promoted and moved to Cincinnati, where I live now. When I got to Cincinnati, I was VP of a $120 million division for this company. And to be honest, I was a little bit in over my head. I was managing people older than me. I leapfrogged my boss. I was now managing him. And so what was happening is I just was taking my identity to work a little bit. And if I had a great presentation to the executive team, I thought I was the man. And if not, then, I was afraid I'd get fired. And so it was causing me to skip the gym. It was causing me to skip quiet time. And when the kids were maybe playing on the floor, I'd have my laptop on my lap. And so I hired an executive coach. Like, I needed help. And I went to my boss and I said, hey, I need some help. And he said, hey, get an executive coach. I've always had one. So I was like, all right, well, I'll do that. And it changed my life. And I know that sounds extreme, but it did. One, I do that for a living now. So it did change my life, but also just changed my life in that current corporate role that I was in, because I just looked at life differently. I had a better outside perspective, was prioritizing things other than just working in the business. I was working on the business, and just better father, better husband, better leader. So I took one more corporate move where I was president of sales for a national contractor. And what was happening is, as I would travel throughout the country to meet with these salespeople, I was basically coaching them. I was talking about personally, hey, are they dating their spouse? Are they being intentional with their kids? Are they getting in the gym? But also helping them professionally. Are you blocking out time for business development? Are you, how are you thinking about your territory from a vision and strategic standpoint? And I was kind of doing this both and it was helping them as well. So and our company improved. Our EBITDA was getting better. So I was like, I want to do this for a living. If this helped me and it helped individuals and companies improved, I want to do this. So that's what happened is I left corporate, started building a coaching, company and career. And that's now what I do is I get to do executive coaching and come alongside leaders to help them. I've got a team of coaches under me that work and then also do speaking. So that's basically the last 20 years.
Very good.
3 cities and a few careers.
So who are your ideal clients? Who do you work with on most often basis?
Yeah, most often who I'm working with and how I kind of describe it is, my clients are folks that love Jesus, drink beer, married, have kids, lead a team. So but that's kind of my ideal avatar, if you will. But most of the people I work with, they are leaders, and leadership's lonely at the top, and they need help. They need that outside perspective. They need the accountability because they're going for big goals. And when we go for big goals, right when we get going, the doubts creep in. That high school teacher that said something that, kind of you still can hear to this day impacts you. And when I work with clients so often, if I was to break down a percentage, and I probably should figure out what this percentage is, but mean, I bet it's 60% we're talking business and helping them think more strategically, but then it's 20% mindset, helping them get out of their own head, destroying limiting beliefs. And then that next 10% is family. Hey, are you dating your spouse? Are you being intentional with kids? And then the last 10% for, a lot of my clients is there's a faith component in there. But for those that I work with that don't have a faith, well, we usually talk spiritual from the standpoint of purpose and going for something.
Yeah. A follow-up question, and that's really good perspective. As you think about those ideal customers, if they hear this podcast, or maybe they've looked at Vistage, or they've looked at some of the other ways you can get coaching, what should they be looking for? What makes a really good coaching engagement, and what should they be in search of when they look for a guy like you or your firm or anybody else? What are kind of the keys to making that work well as somebody that needs a coach?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, well, one thing I'll say not to look for, because I see this a lot. To have a great coach, they do not have to be from your industry.
Yeah.
I know a lot of great coaches, but I'll just speak for myself in the standpoint of I coach people from all these industries, and I don't know anything about them. Because my job is not to speak to the industry. My job as a coach is to get the best version of that individual out of them and into action. So they tell me their challenges, and we talk through how to go after them. They tell me their hopes and dreams, and we think through how do you step forward to it. We discuss their blind spots and areas that they're showing them weakness, and why did they lose their temper with their kid last night, and why are they so annoyed of how someone responded in the boardroom. Like, we're hitting all those things. So it doesn't matter if they're a wealth manager or they are VP of operations for a manufacturing company. And so I think that's just one thing for anyone listening. They don't have to be in your space. And then I think a few things that are huge in a coach. One is chemistry. You got to get along with them. And if your discovery call with that potential coach didn't go well because of chemistry, don't second guess it. Move on. Go interview another coach, because you got to have chemistry, because it's a relationship. I mean, I become friends with my clients. And because we're talking personal stuff, and I don't mean personal and they tell me all your dirty, dark secrets. Not that personal, but I'm stressed about the quarter. I'm nervous about, am I going to hit my numbers? Like that kind of personal stuff. And so you end up just becoming friends. You're texting in between calls most of the time, and meeting people. So make sure there's a chemistry. Make sure that that person will challenge you. Like when you're talking with them, do you feel like they're going to push me? I love mentors. I have mentors, but a lot of time mentors, they don't challenge. They don't call you out. They don't speak maybe into a part of your life that, they're mentors. They meet you occasionally and have a good time, And so chemistry, they will challenge you. Obviously, you want to make sure that they're competent. Do they come with content? Are they learners? I mean, you want a coach who's got a coach. You want a coach who's invested in themselves. And so that's a big piece. And so as you're interviewing your coach, hey, do you have a coach? What books are you reading? Where have you investing your time? Those would just be some of the things I'd be looking for. Chemistry and challenge and competency. And also character. If they say they're a coach to help you win at home and win at work, well, let's hope that they are, have a good marriage and have good engagement with their kids.
Yeah. So speaking of win at home, you've got a book out called Win at Home First, and then your most recent book is called Rise and Go. Tell us a little bit about the premise of that book, and let's dig into that a little bit.
Yeah. And so I guess I'll hit on, I know we're going to dive into Rise and Go. What I just say about the Win at Home First, since you introduced it, is that was the first book I wrote. And the reason I wrote the book is because, well, one, personally, I lost at home first. I did the whole push for corporate, and kind of some things fell along the wayside. And what I also found in the coaching, and why I chose to write the book, is there's many business leaders that think it's an either or. Like, if I'm going to be successful at work, then that means home has to suffer. And maybe when I make enough money, I'll invest in home. Or there's individuals that think, hey, if I'm going to be a great father or great mother, husband, wife, then that means I'm going to have to say no to a whole bunch of promotions. And maybe, there may be some parts of that may be true. But however, I disagree. I mean, it's a both and. I know many leaders who are crushing at home and they're running the company. Mm-hmm. So anyways, I wrote the book to put together some tools in Win at Home First that I wish I would have known and I learned along the way. So it's a resource that's been very helpful to leaders. It's 4 parts. First part's on you, second's marriage, third's parenting, and fourth's work. And it's just helping leaders win at home first.
And pretty widely recognized among business circles. Forbes magazine named it to one of the 7 books that everyone on your team should read. So congratulations for that recognition.
And well, thanks. And it just that's just it was a great God thing. It was pretty darn cool. And then just the endorsements. And I think that'd be one thing I'd say to anybody is, to any listener, don't let other people say no to you without ever asking them.
Yeah.
I asked John Gordon, he's a big name in the leadership space. I just sent him a note asking if he'd endorse my book. As opposed to assuming he'd say no, I'm just going to try, take a swing at the plate. And he said yes. I was like, oh my goodness. So I put his name on the cover. But there's just other people I did the same thing. I went and asked. So just any encouragement to that listener is don't say no for people.
Yeah.
Have them do it. So anyways, that's been a fun journey, pretty cool, which led me to my second book, Rise and Go. Mm-hmm. The reason I wrote Rise and Go is I shared my story. I left corporate. I'm going to become this coach. It's going to be amazing. Life's going to be awesome. I'm going to be a full-time coach, full-time speaker. Well, the time that my family, we decided to go all in into coaching and speaking was March 1st, 2020.
Great time to start a new company.
That's right.
It was a good 10 days, right?
Yeah, it was amazing. That's exactly right. And it was an amazing 10 days. It was so cool, so fun. Well, obviously we know what happens next. On March 13th, which was a Friday, I'm not a superstitious guy, but I think Friday the 13th is kind of weird that everything started shutting down from you have to wear a mask and stay at home. And on that day, I got a couple of emails canceling speaking engagements. And on that day, 35% of my revenue went away. And I had no idea what would happen to the other 65%. Would I just start getting email after email of canceling speaking engagements and clients? And I didn't, tailspin would be an exaggeration, but man, I wasn't in a good spot. I hit a funk because we went all in and to coaching, and then here it goes. It appears to be unraveling. So I got in a funk. But over the course of those next few months, I just had different content get pointed to me. I'd hear a cool story of resilience on a podcast. I'd hear something else that kind of inspired me. And basically it just started kind of brewing up in me to take some of this content. I was writing some different blogs. At that time, I didn't know I was writing a book. But I'd write a blog, and then a client said that they were stressed about something. I'm like, well, I just actually wrote this blog this week. Take a look at this. Maybe this will help you get picked up. So over that course of a year, I had 65 different clients that I was sharing these little nuggets with that were helping me get up, almost like ladder rungs to a ladder, helping me get from the valley to what would be that next peak. And I was sharing with these clients. It got battle tested. I'm like, well, there's a book here. I didn't know there was going to be a book here, but here's a book. So I put it together, a book, and published the book. 20 chapters. First 10 are to give you the courage to get back up. And the next 10 chapters are to give you the confidence to move forward. And that's what this book has became, is just a resource for leaders to help with resilience. You can read it from front to back, but it's also individual chapters that it's like, man, I got to read this chapter on obedience. I got to read this chapter on rejection. I got to read on this strategy. So that's why I wrote the book, is because basically anytime I write a book to, Jeff, it probably means that something bad happened. So if I write a third book, you may be like, oh, crud, what happened in Cory's life?
Yeah. I always say when I'm, a lot of times when I'm writing or speaking or talking, I'm just sharing experiences and letting people listen in, right? Because it's usually something that I've messed up or done badly or what have you. So.
Yeah, 100%. And that's what I've enjoyed. So that's why I wrote the book, is because I got knocked down and put together some tools that helped me get up. And really the through line of the book is all leaders get knocked down. It's just the great leaders get back up quicker.
Yeah.
So what could it look like in your life if the next time you got knocked down, you were able to get back up quicker?
Yeah, that
this book gives some tools to allow that.
That resilience message is a good one, and it was timely when you came upon it. I reflect. I remember those days so clearly, and we were a business overall that would have as many as 250 live events a year in person, and we had to figure out how to quickly go through a digital transformation and how to keep things going. And ultimately, ended up facing that challenge. Ended up being a benefit to us as a group and individuals. And around that same time, in late March, Jeff and I did this video series, essentially webinar series called Improvise, Adapt, and Overcome. Kind of stole the line from Clint Eastwood's Heartbreak Ridge a little bit. But the whole message was similar to what you talk about in Rise and Go. It's like, you've dealt these circumstances. Now, what are you going to do about it? How are you going to move forward? So your messaging was, and the book is timely and useful regardless of what sort of existential circumstance you might be facing. It's really good stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting. We observed at that time that the average small business, had less than 27 days of cash on hand, and many of those small businesses were shut down for more than 27 days. And the sheer panic that was occurring in many of those small business owners calling and saying, am I a terrible person if I have to lay somebody off? Just tough questions they were wrestling with. So let's talk about some of the tips, some of the things that you recommend in Rise and Go for someone who's been knocked down. Number one, to get back up, and then maybe we can look at some of the tips that you give for actually moving forward after you get up.
Yeah, I think one thing, I have to do this to myself, and I have to do this. I do this with clients from time to time. Is kind of this process. Like we all want life to go up and to the right. Like, over time, we want to grow and move up the corporate ladder. Over time, we want to make more money. I mean, everything we want up and to the right. And what happens is we think that's a straight line. And we know when we kind of draw it out, we even plot our own careers, there's peaks and valleys. Mm-hmm. And what I will have to do in my own life, and as well as with clients, is remind them when they're in a funk, right? When they've had a setback, they're in a valley. They're just in a valley. And what can happen is our head trash will fuel that. Things that have been said to us over our life will kind of creep back in. My high school counselor said I wasn't smart enough to be an engineer. And so I can still hear that. I mean, I did become an engineer, and I've now, done successful pivots throughout my career. I can still hear her saying that I'm not smart enough to be an engineer. And I don't think it was a malicious, mean thing she was saying. I think she probably was trying to just protect me. Like, hey, based on your scores, maybe you should try a different degree and you'll have more success. And so I'm sure it was a kind thing she was doing, but I can still hear the negative side of it, and all of us can. And so one piece of it is, if we're not careful, we got to basically hold those thoughts captive of, hey, this is the head trash we're hearing. And so stop. And so sometimes just acknowledge, hey, what's the junk you're hearing? Is the first thing when you're in that valley, and zoom out. And so that second piece is to zoom out and look how far you've come. Like, I will actually have clients write through what are the things that they are grateful for. Both at a macro and a micro. What I mean from the macro is, man, just write down a bunch of stuff. Oh, man, that was cool. We bought a new house a few years ago. Or I got this new job, or we hired this amazing employee, or I can't believe the partnership we've had with company XYZ for the last 3 years. Just write down some of the cool stuff at a macro level to see, hey, man, there's been some amazing peaks along the way. Mm-hmm. From a micro standpoint, if I got someone really kind of in a funk at that moment, is I say start writing down the 3 things you're grateful for every single day. And I'm not the first one to come up with this, right? There's gratitude journals. I mean, people have been doing this forever.
Yep.
However, some people forget it's an easy resource to go to in times of stress and frustration. And so write down the 3 things you're grateful for, because what we focus on expands. And if we are seeing more of the good in our life, we're just going to see more of it. Mm-hmm. Write down some of the big highlights you've had over these last few years. But then from the micro, if you're in a funk, write down 3 things. Mm-hmm. And then so the next piece is, all right, so now we've kind of looked back on this rise and go graph to get to our present moment. We look back. Now let's look forward. What are the hopes and the dreams you're going after? Because depression, now I'm not talking about clinical depression, but the kind of depression that all of us get from time to time, just in a funk, it's the absence of hope.
Yep.
And if we don't have anything we're looking forward to, it can just be like, what is this all about? So I encourage, myself, but also clients is, what's the hope? Well, where's those beacons of light in your calendar you're excited about? And that's why I think it's important to plan staycations as well, vacations, guide trips, trips with your kids, just different things that are in your calendar that you can see and say, yeah, I can't wait till then. That's going to be awesome. So those are just some of the things to do, is kind of capture the current thoughts going through your head, throw in some gratitude of what's gotten you this far, and then what is the hope for the future?
So I'd be curious to get your thoughts on just observing among your client base and or just the world in general. I have my own biases, but what do you think the state of mental toughness and mental resilience is out there in the world right now?
I think people that are paying attention to it and looking to get better are getting better. Mm-hmm. And I think those that are poor me and life's awful, I think it's becoming more and more awful for them. But I think there are things that we need to do as leaders to prepare our hearts, minds, body, and souls for each of the days. And so no matter what your faith position is to the listener, but some form of solitude, meditation, prayer, exercise, whatever that is, to armor up each day. And quite honestly, get ready for the fight. Get ready for that prospect saying no. Get ready for that client who's going to cancel. Get ready for maybe some culture thing at the office to take place. But you've got to armor up for it to build that resilience. We just don't want to walk into a fight, into a battle without our weapons. And part of our weapons is going to be armoring up and preparing our hearts for it. So I think that's one thing, is what are you doing to start the day? I think another is, what are you allowing into your eyes, ears, and minds? So for me, I deleted Facebook and Instagram off my phone.
Yeah.
When I would go to those, I wasn't in a good mindset. Comparison would kick in. They were wasting my time, not only in the moment. Let's just say we spent 15 minutes on one of those social medias. Not only did I waste the 15 minutes, but I also wasted all the other minutes after that I was still thinking about something. And so I think it's thinking through, not only are you armoring up in the morning, but what inputs are you allowing throughout the day? Are they contributing to making you a better version of yourself, or are they distractions and actually hurting you?
So it's really about being intentional, personally being intentional with your what you're focused on, being intentional, how you go about your work every day, et cetera.
100%. Yeah. Be intentional with the choices you are making. Absolutely.
So how do you, as a leadership coach or an executive coach, help someone develop those disciplines, those habits?
Through a variety of ways. One, the value of a coach. Mm-hmm. Where the value of a coach comes is outside perspective. Like, you're not alone.
Yeah.
I remember when I first started coaching, I would be intimidated to get some clients on the other side of the Zoom call. Like, oh man, they run a huge company. I'm nervous. Like, not anymore. It's not that I don't care. It's that everyone's broken. Everyone is struggling. Everyone has insecurities. Everyone is wondering, they got a little bit of imposter syndrome. And so as the listener for you, is if you're feeling any of that, man, the good news is you're not alone. Everyone's dealing with that. So as a coach, I get to provide outside perspective that, hey, you're not alone. You're not the only one nervous about the next quarter. You're not the only one thinking, culture could get better, whatever the thing is. And so that part's helpful. The other is a reminder of them of the choices they're making. What are the disciplines? We all get off track when our biology and our mindsets get off track. Too many days of sugar and too many days of booze and too many days will get people off. And it's like, man, it's time to recalibrate. Mm-hmm. So coach can help from outside perspective, and a coach can help from accountability. Hey, what are you doing? What time are you going to bed? Let's stop watching the late night shows. What time are you waking up? Like, all those types of pieces sound easy, but left to our own devices, we'll all kind of have a tendency to drift.
Yep.
And so a coach can help people get back into their lane.
Very good. Very good. Well, Cory, tell our listeners where they can connect with you at.
Well, don't go to Facebook or Instagram. No, I am there actually. And I don't look at it from my phone anymore. Yeah, the best place is my website, Cory M, as in Michael, CoryMCarlson.com. And we've got a free resource for you to go check out, 10 ways to win at home and win at work. You can go download that PDF, check it out. And then inside the website, it's obviously access to my books. And I've got a podcast called Win at Home First, where we interview business leaders. And Jeff, your episode will be coming up. Who knows the timing of this, but Jeff Standridge was on it, which is pretty fun and cool to do. So that will be happening. And then my books, they are on Audible and Amazon, and love to be a resource to you in any way for the listeners. And if you want to learn about coaching, reach out. Love to share what we're doing.
That's great. That's great. Well, this episode is actually going to be our season finale, if you will. Yeah. Carry us into the new year. It's going to come right before Christmas on December the 18th. So we hope all of our listeners out there will take this holiday season as an opportunity to think about your own leadership, think about your own resilience, think about your own habits and disciplines, think about the content that you've heard on the Innovation Junkies podcast over the course of the year, and start thinking about your leadership practices going into 2024. Jeff Amorine, anything you would add?
No, I just want to thank Cory. Appreciate the time that you spent with us today and the inspiration and guidance you've provided a lot of people who I know it's true for entrepreneurs and executives alike, who feel like they're alone on this journey. And the coaching, and good books like what you've written are immensely helpful. Thank you for what you do.
Well, thank you. Thank you both. And thanks for letting me speak to your audience. Great, very grateful for it. So thank you.
Grateful to you as well. This has been another episode of the Innovation Junkies podcast. See you in 2024.
See you next season. Feedback from listeners like you helps us create outstanding content. So if you like this episode, be sure to rate us or leave a review. Also, don't forget to subscribe to get the latest growth and innovation strategies. Thanks for tuning in to the Innovation Junkies podcast.